What's wrong with you people?
Welcome to Not Another Baptist Podcast. My name is Matt Hensley, the pastor of Plymouth Park Baptist Church, and I am joined from, where are you?
Where am I? I'm in Nashville, an international
Nashville,
airport.
Tennessee. Hey, Kyle,
Yep.
non-alcoholic beerman, are you from Tennessee?
No,
Because you're
definitely
the
not.
only 10 I see.
Ha, ha, ha.
All right. What have you been doing in the great land of the volunteers?
Yeah, so I came up here. I had a couple of association meetings that I was able to lead, and one for my former boss, Bob Pickford, who's now the AMS at the Nashville Baptist Association, and then I got to go up and do one for the Bledsoe Baptist Association. Yeah, just had a good time and got to see a couple of our friends while I was up here. Got to have dinner with Patrick and Lydia Watts, so we'll give them a shout out. And then got to have lunch yesterday with Jonathan, who's been
Hey,
on the show a couple of times.
look at you with all the
Friend,
SBC
friend of,
elites, man.
I got to see the SB. I was gonna say the SBC headquarters, but that's the local church. But I got to see the SBC building where the executive committee and the ERLC's house. And then last night, I got to go to the Grand Ole Opry and saw a pretty special show. Do you know why?
You went to see like the post office guy or whatever.
Yeah, a guy named Post Malone,
Yeah.
who's not traditionally been a country singer, but he made his Grand Ole Opry debut, and that show had no business being as good as it was. It was absolutely outstanding. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's been a fun few days, productive, good meetings, and yeah. So now I'm at the airport, ready to fly home and sleep in my own bed.
Well, before you do that, we're going to talk about, well, church communications.
Ooh,
How about that? Church communications. We all know, probably have a love-hate relationship. Most of you that are listening to this, if you are listening to podcasts, you probably have some level of experience with social media and church communication. Maybe you're not the podcaster that has a flip phone and just uses a Rolodex these days and maybe still sends out that church newsletter or even has that regular old staple that we all love, the church bulletin.
ooh, yep, there you
But many of our listeners are solo pastors. And then some of, our podcast hosts that are pastors with a staff may feel like solo pastors when you have guys like Micah Head on your team. But no, I'm just kidding. Church communication for solo guys can be difficult because we're wearing a lot of different hats. Maybe you are the sound guy and the song guy and the sermon guy, and then you also have to be the social media guy. You like how I alliterated that? Sound,
Yep,
song, sermon, and social media.
yep.
You could
That was very
also
preachery.
be the Sunday school teacher, and there we have a 5-point sermon for the solo pastor and his duties in typically your typical Southern Baptist church. So we also know that nobody ever tells me anything, right? You could put it on the website, you could put it on Facebook, you could put it in the
Yeah,
bulletin, you could put it even on like the sign outside if you had to. And nobody ever tells anybody anything. Nobody knows what's going on, all of that kind of stuff. And so church communication can kind of feel like a waste of time, but also a little time consuming and a little frustrating and all of that kind of stuff. And recently, Mark McDonald, I don't know if our listeners will necessarily know who he is, but he is a communication pastor, speaker, consultant, and best-selling author, something I don't know that we can officially say. But he is also a church branding strategist for beknownforsomething.com and has empowered thousands of pastors and churches to become known for something relevant. And his church branding book, Be Known for Something, very, specific and on the nose, is available at beknownbook.com. And so he's done really well on branding that particular thing. But he has written an article on Lifeway Research that I thought we could just touch on for a moment before you fly back to the Great Republic.
and
And it has a few things
which
to,
exists because of the great state of Tennessee.
it is true. It is very true. Let's talk about a few ways that pastors, or some things that pastors need to keep in mind when it comes to church communication, because you're going to have to do it, especially solo guy. You're going to have to do something. So how can you make the most of it? And number one is knowing your audience. And Mark really kind of distills it into two, doesn't he? He kind of talks about your internal and your external side of communication. And so, Kyle, let's talk briefly about those two things. When you used social media for First Alamogordo, how did you kind of use the communication strategy of your church? Was it more maybe 75-25? Was it 50-50? How did you break it down in terms of internal and external?
So yeah, I mean, I would say most of our church Facebook stuff was, I don't know, I guess I'd say probably 75-25 internal versus external. So I mean, I would post short videos, kind of either recapping the previous week's message or talking about what was coming in the next week's sermon, events coming up, important stuff that they needed to know. That kind of stuff would be on our church Facebook page. Which, upcoming events that can be both and, right. That can be an internal for your folks to know, but then it's certainly if it's a community event, that's a good way to promote it as well. Yeah, I would say it probably leans 75-25 internal, external. Most of the external stuff, like if you're doing events and stuff like that, that came by the way of paid targeted ads that we put on Facebook to reach the community of Alamogordo for back to school thing or Easter in the park or something like that we were doing.
Yep. I know you got to use it to obviously communicate with your people, let people know what's
Yep.
going on and all of that kind of stuff. But it's also when you think of that 25%, gear it towards things that your people can share. And so then your external stuff will be shared and seen by their people and beyond. Forward this email to somebody or a coworker or
Yep.
whatever it might be. Because if you are only focusing on internal stuff, you're probably going to stagnate and decline. And the same is true, obviously, for the ministries of your church, but also your communication. Next thing he talks about is creating some controls and fences. One of the things that I realize is the more I can make the communication side, because I still kind of, we do have a communication consultant that helps us with some of our scheduling and so forth for Facebook, but a lot of it falls on me. And that's more so because it's kind of one of the things that I'm pretty good at, one of the few things that I'm good at. And so one of the things that I try to do is make it a part of the rhythm of a normal day or a normal kind of time that I'm going to spend, instead of I'm going to go and have to come up with a graphic, I'm going to have to come up with a post and come up with something to say. Make it think through. Like for me, sermon, goes out on Sunday morning, we live stream it, usually Sunday afternoon after we go to lunch. I'm going to watch it again and see, were the slides working well? Was the mix for the sound doing well? And kind of recap and think through my sermon. What didn't I do well? Where did I get tripped up? Where did I think I was losing people or getting people, whatever it might be? Well, while I'm doing that, it's downloading. And then I put it into, iMovie and cut off the front end and cut off the back end and then upload it for YouTube where it's just the sermon. That also then gives me a clip that I'll find for the reel, and I already have like kind of a template that I can throw that in. And all of that takes it. Well, it depends on how many of my girls are watching TV at that moment to depend on how long it's going to take to download. But usually it's going to be very quick. And it's something that could be done in about 30-45 minutes. And it doesn't feel like something extra. It's just a part of what I'm already doing. Mark also talks about, thinking through only having about 2 fonts for your logo and your communication and so forth. One of the things that you want is an identifiable, maybe brand, for lack of a better word. I mean, that's what we're talking about, where everybody just knows this is First Alamogordo. This is, we see it, it's the color scheme, it's all of that kind of stuff. It's not just every week a different color scheme and a different font layout and all of that kind of stuff. You want it to look pretty streamlined, but also have times where it's going to stand out, a new picture, a new color, whatever it might be. And that also thinks through your logo as well. But then think through your communication source. Are you going to hit them by, what is it, land, sea, and sky, or whatever it might be? But anyway, in the past, obviously, you had the church bulletin and you had church announcements. And there's going to be a level of, you have some announcements that you can make. Don't be the guy that's getting up there and giving 11 announcements on Sunday morning, because they're not going to remember 11 things. They're not even going to remember one. So at least just give them one that they can forget instead of 11 that they're going to forget. But he kind of encourages you to think through a concentration area of a tool or a channel And that could be your website, your social media page, the weekly bulletin, the weekly email, that kind of a thing. But think through maybe one or two that you're going to do well, that they know where they can get the information that they need. And then that kind of leads to that basic web presence. Kyle, we've talked about in the past, somebody has called it the new front door of your church. Of course, we've talked about that is probably nowadays your live stream. Since everybody's kind of doing that, that's really your front door of the church. That's where they're going to visit you first. But your website. Give me like three things that the first thing they should see on the page when they get there.
Your service times.
Yeah.
When you meet. Yeah. And so I've been amazed, in the line of work that I do, whenever I'm on a call with a pastor, I'll look up their website because I want to know what the guy looks like that I'm talking with. I want to know just a little bit like what I can find about their church. And I've been shocked by the number of church websites that don't have that basic information like easily seeable on their homepage. Sometimes I had to like click 2, 3, 4 times to find address where they're, what time they meet. Man, make that front and center, right? And then put your church leadership, your staff on there, so folks know like who they're looking for when they walk through the door. And then something about your upcoming events that you need to that you want people to know about. Make that visual on your website and something that folks find quickly when they go to it. When it comes to a website, you don't have to have a super flashy site, but it does need to have some basic information that it needs to be accessible to the people that are trying to find out information about how to get to your church when you meet. So don't bury that really important stuff behind like flashy graphics and having a cool look. The information is far more important than the slick look of your website.
Think about the moment your page opens, that it being a postcard for your church. Like think of what is all of if I'm giving out an invite card for my church, what's everything that's going to be on that particular card, and make sure that front page, the first thing that you see is that, you're welcome here with, a picture of the church, the address, your service times, maybe the name of the pastor, everyone is welcome, or whatever your little tagline might be. And then let that be there, and then have all of the other stuff come as you start to scroll, so that they see as soon as they get there, where to go, what time to be there, maybe what it looks like and what to expect when you get there. And then number 5, hey, we've talked about this being for the solo guy. You still need some help. And, you might have somebody that is tasked with, maybe they're good with social media, where their job is just to be on the live stream while the service is going. And when somebody pops in there, hey, Kyle, thanks for joining us. And, when it says like the Beermans are watching, hey, Kyle, we're glad you're here. How can we pray for you? Just engage with those that are watching, or throw in the comment section, maybe a point as it comes up. And because you don't have to do it on your own, even though it's going to be easy for you to do it on your own, maybe start working with somebody else that can help you share things and post things, and assign them something that they can do very simply with access, maybe as an editor to your page, or even, an admin for your page if you trust them, that kind of a deal, where they can invite people to it, they can share things, they can post things, and get some help, get some backup, and help you do it and spread that bandwidth around. And so, hey, you can do it well, and you can do it poorly. And one of the simplest things you can do is just stay up to date. Make sure people know what's going on. That if you have something on your page that is coming up, that you take it down when it's over. So when you show up on the page, you don't see something that's like 4 months ago. Is this thing even open?
If you, as pastor, if you have not visited your church website, like just typed in the URL and taken a look at what it looks like, do that right now. Pause this, open up your website, and if you see like Easter 2023 on there, make that change quickly.
Yeah. Well, Kyle's going to catch his jet plane back to the Great Republic. I'm going to go drink another coffee. But until next time, may your coffee be as black as night and as bold as my prediction that the Astros were, in fact, going to win the division.
What's wrong with you people?